I don't spend any money on social media ads or bus ads or mail outs. I spend money advertising my properties, but I don't do any self promotion. And it's just all from working a network, right? And that's greatly helped by being organized with a CRM.
Podcast fam. I'm Jenny Woon.
I'm Tony Singh.
And welcome to our show. We have Cam Walker joining us today on our episode. Welcome, Cam.
Hi, Cam.
Hey, everyone.
So we had I think we're kind of in the groove of like laughing a lot, but let's get a little bit serious for just a moment here. Okay. Cam, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Cam Walker. I've been with Oakwyn for the last 3 years, been a licensed agent for the last 10 years, live over on the North Shore, do most of my business over on the North Shore. Also like to dabble in some more entrepreneurial business startups over the years. But family guy, love being outdoors, love everything on the water and in the mountains. So yeah, it's a little bit about me.
Awesome. Well, that was short and sweet. Icebreaker question. Cam, what is your spirit animal?
Oh, that is a tough one. A spirit animal. Jeez, that you just like throw me right into it there with a spirit animal thing.
You can handle it.
Yeah, I don't know. I think a spirit animal for me would probably be a bear. I like bears. They just feel like so strong and majestic. I kind of wish I could be that, but I'm not. And I just feel like everyone's kind of scared of them. I don't know. It's kind of a good way to be.
Very mysterious. I think one day we're going to compile all these spirit animals and kind of see if there's a pattern.
Yeah.
Because we're all entrepreneurs. We're all, we're self-employed and wondering if there's going to be a pattern from all these answers.
Well, you're definitely not going to get an entrepreneur and be like, oh yeah, my spirit animal's a tortoise. It's like, no, probably not.
So instead of you wins the race, you might. You never know.
Did we have a rabbit?
We had ants, the last one.
Yeah, we did have an ant. And that was an Oakwyn agent. Yeah. Well, actually, no, it was a husband describing his wife.
It was actually awesome.
Yeah, that was a great answer, though. There was a good explanation behind that. Coming back to Cam, you talked about you have multiple businesses. So I'm actually curious, and we're going to touch on one, and that's why you're on the show today. I mean, we want to talk more about your business, but being an entrepreneur is something that it's a gift in our business. So we're going to talk about Reach CRM. What are your other businesses? This is a great way to kind of learn about you.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Well, my work career started at a pretty young age. I've never actually had a real job with a paycheck. So the first business I started was back when I was 18, and we started by just like stringing Christmas lights on people's houses. We're like, wait a minute, people pay a lot of money for this. So next thing you knew, we were in China manufacturing all our own product. We took over every major mall contract and every house kind of from Victoria to Abbotsford and built this massive, we built like a really big business out of it. So it was, quite profitable, very lucrative. People don't realize how much people will pay for Christmas lights to go up. We thought like a little lady is going to pay us a few $100 to put up her lights. And we're like, oh, wait a minute. Someone in West Van will pay us 30 grand to do their lights and make it pretty spectacular. So I remember we landed our first commercial contract. We landed Park Royal and it was like such a big deal. And you start realizing like, oh my gosh, like Christmas lights is a serious industry. And then obviously manufacturing lights and stuff is key. So I ended up selling that. I started that with my best friend, Kevin, and he took it over and then morphed it into a company called Enchant, which did their very first year in Vancouver, probably about 4 or 5 years ago. It's like a Christmas light maze and market, but left the Canadian market and they do these huge Christmas light events in MLB stadiums. So last year he ran events in Vegas, Seattle, Tampa, Washington. So it's turned into something much bigger, which is kind of fun because I go around and travel to all of them with them and see what's going on. And they invite like I think last year they had 1.5 million people come through the doors. So it's, yeah, so that was one. And then kind of morphed into, we're like, well, what else should we do? We really like cars. I'm like, this is when changing the color of your car was really cool. So we started wrapping cars. We're like, oh, that's a cool little business, and gave us the opportunity to do some work with Lamborghini and Ferrari in Vancouver. And we worked out of Horseshoe Bay, so we'd have to pick the cars up. And again, we're like 20 years old picking up these Lamborghinis from over town, and we're like, this is the greatest thing ever, driving someone else's Lambo.
Wait, were you the guy that was in the newspaper where you were caught speeding on the way to Whistler by any chance?
No,
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 that was-
no, no. I never had any big speeding tickets, which is great because that's always awkward when you're in a customer's car and you're like, and I have a huge speeding ticket, so I got to deal with that. But we shut that down just because it was very time consuming. It was more of a hobby project and it was a lot of fun, but not something long term. And then prior to this is all that was prior to real estate. Got into real estate. That's been kind of like my bread and butter. Try to do lots of transactions, keep really busy in that side. But there's just this creative side that I need to keep feeding. So we launched another company called Gift Locally, which was kind of the whole idea was to help specifically realtors, but really anyone give good local gifts simply. So we went up to all the different places like Gourmet Warehouse, Temper Chocolate and Pastry, all these places, and we got them to create gift baskets that an agent could just go onto our website, select the category they want, they select the price they want to spend, and it delivers directly to your client's doorstep with a handwritten note from you, but delivered by someone else. And it was this great system. We actually did quite well with it, but there was just some issues with shipping and all that stuff because people wanted to mix and match something from Gourmet Warehouse or something from here. And we're like, there's some logistical nightmares here. And to do what we want to do probably means a warehouse, but then that kind of takes away the whole premise of the business is like not having a brick and mortar thing. So we ended up just packaging that up as well, like kind of all entrepreneurs do. It's like, oh, try it. It worked, but not how we intended. So move on. And then a few years ago, after not doing anything for a little while, launched Reach. But that was really more out of necessity than anything else. So
Tell us more about Reach and what it is, for our listeners.
For sure. Yeah. So Reach is a CRM specifically built for realtors. Obviously, we know that there are CRMs out there that exist. You know, you got Top Producer and Exact Contact and all these companies out there, but I had tried them all and they were all very clunky or very overwhelming. Like you log into them, and you're like, I don't even know where to begin. There's so many options and it just didn't feel good. They're also really expensive. So a few years ago, I was sitting in Whistler and I was like, man, there's got to be a better solution. And my wife was in this conference. So I was just like sitting at the house, just scribbling on paper. I'm like, yeah, let's just make like a simplified version. Let's take away all the crap that you don't really need and come up with something that agents will actually use. Because at the end of the day, all these fancy features sound great, but if you don't use them, your CRM's useless. So that's kind of what led to the beginning of Reach. And it's been like from kind of initial concept idea in my head was about 3 years ago. It's been 2 years of actually working on it. And then this past January was like our official launch date. So we have a lot of agents using us now, trying to continue to grow, but we're trying to grow slowly because we want to make sure our users have good experiences. So we do a lot of changes on the fly, different teams. Like we have some very big Oakland teams that use us. And, they're like, hey, we'd really like this. And we're like, hey, that's something we actually didn't think about. And because we're a smaller company, we're able to pivot and make those changes and really work with the agents to create a software that will really work for agents, right? Instead of a software company building something that they think will work for agents.
Who are not realtors.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, totally. And, there are some other companies out there that were started by realtors, but they haven't been in the industry for over a decade. And it's like they're kind of lost touch. So for me, obviously, I do a lot of transactions. So I'm in the business feeling out like what actually needs to be done and how it's going to work for my business. And having some other big players involved too, who are like, yeah, this is what I need in my business. And it's all, there's some differences for sure. But yeah, it's been an interesting journey because building tech, I think everyone thinks it's easy. Everyone has an app idea or software idea. And it's just really, one, it's really hard to get a good partner. So we have I have a dream technical partner named Mike over in Victoria, and another local realtor, Brandon, who's also partnered in it. And it's having the right team was so key. But yeah, it's just building out tech takes forever because there's a lot of problems and glitches and stuff to get over, which is interesting.
Yeah, let's talk about the team aspect. So you have two, like you have a partner and a software developer. So how much, so this has been primarily in the last 2 years. How much have you, if you're okay sharing, like how much have you invested in this?
Yeah, it's not cheap. um, a lot, like hundreds of thousands of dollars go into it for sure. Just paying salaries to like our programmer, he's a partner in it, a minority partner, but he has some equity, but he left his job. Like originally we all started this as kind of like the side thing, right? But we realized quickly, like with more users, we needed someone to be there full time to be making changes and making sure things are running properly. So you take a senior guy from a tech company and now you have to pay him his salary. You're like, okay, well, this has just skyrocketed the costs. And then you're doing things like getting students out of UVic and stuff on co-op programs, but it's shocking what you have to pay a co-op student. Like it's actually mind blowing. Like these guys, they're making like $5,000 a month as a co-op student. I'm like, what the hell? Like we're literally having to teach you how to do stuff. Um, so yeah, that's the other thing. I think again, a lot of people, there's a misconception that you can just get in and do something, and the cost to these things is huge, and just the time. Like it's exhausting for me to try to keep up with the real estate business that I do, and try and do this is really really challenging. And at times, like I have to go offline from a reach perspective just because I can't let my real estate business suffer. Like that's at the end of the day what helps fund this project. We don't have any angel investors. I don't really have any interest in that. It's always been like self-funded, make it work. But to do that, you obviously have to keep your day job afloat, right? So,
Balancing act for sure.
right, yeah, and it would be one thing if I was only doing 10 transactions a year and kind of twiddling my thumbs the rest, then you can do whatever. But I don't operate that way. So, yeah.
I have a question. I'm curious about this though, because I can see that your visions come out of a place of, need and in your experience working in your real estate business. So I guess the question would be, what would be the 3 key features of your CRM that differentiate you from all of the other ones? Because I agree, we've used a lot of different ones too. They're clunky, but maybe 3 key features that are specific to us in our real estate businesses.
Totally. Well, one of the big things we've had, and this is just so simple, but I found important. A lot of CRMs, like you go in, you have one big area for your contacts. That's it. It's like your huge contact list. You see your leads in there, but you also see your historical contacts. And I was like, why is that like that? Like there's something to differentiate them. There's usually like a hot, warm, or cold marker or something like that. You can classify your clients, but it's still this huge list. So I was like, the first thing we need to do is we need to have a contacts list, and then we need to have a leads list. And that leads list is where you're going to break down the hot, warm, and cold, but it's going to be separated out from your contacts. So they're still technically a contact. They're just showing in a different section because that's where you need to live, right? You're going to have X hot leads, X warm leads, X cold leads, and you need to nurture those. But you need a separate place to do that because if you're looking at a list of, hundreds, if not thousands of people, it's overwhelming. Whereas the reality is, even the top teams, you're not working with hundreds of people at a time. Let's say you're working with 10 super hot leads right now. Well, those are the people you're going to spend most of your time on. So you need to have that built in. The other thing is there's some other CRMs that have this, but it didn't seem as dedicated. Like they have reminder systems, but I wanted like a constant reminder system. And we called it previously was called the call sheet. We've actually integrated that now into the leads page. But I spent years, my office was next to Jason Soprovich's office. And obviously everyone knows him. He's a huge agent, does a ton of business. But that guy will pick up the phone every Monday morning and just call everyone on his leads list, regardless of if they're going to buy in 6 months or a year. Like if they're on his leads list, they're getting a call because he wants to make sure that they hear his voice and they're not forgotten. And I was like, okay, well, how do we implement that into this leads list? So this call sheet, depending on how you classify your clients, hot, warm, or cold, there's a little timer on the side and you can set what that is. So like for my personal account, every 7 days, I get a reminder to contact a hot lead. And every 14 days, I get a reminder to contact a warm lead. And that timer resets when you action the item. So if I, call my client Kelly and have a good conversation with her, a little box pops at the end. How did you contact them? Anything, notes you want to write about the conversation. You can create a task directly from that so that you won't forget what you need to do. And then as soon as you hit save, it resets that timer from that day for 7 days in the future. And now let's say you don't really want to deal with that. You're like, no, I just talked to her or bumped into her at the grocery store. You can just hit dismiss and it will do the same thing, resets it. But it keeps you really engaged with your people. And where I find that actually the most beneficial is in your cold leads, right? Because your hot leads, you're probably out there doing showings with them all the time. But your cold leads are people, maybe you met them at an open house, right? Like maybe they walked into one of your sales centers and they're like, hey, this isn't really for us, but we'd really like something else. And you're like, well, great, I'm not going to give up on this. But if they don't hear from you for 2 weeks, they're definitely going to go find another agent to work with, right? So having people in your colds and using this call sheet, I think has been something that definitely differentiates us and keeps us different. The other thing is just simplicity. Like we're really robust, but we try to keep it simple, which is like way harder to develop that way because we could just keep throwing features and features and features and features, but it gets exhausting. You're like, why? You don't want that, right? You need to make it so it's still functional. Um, so by having simplicity, it's also things like having automation, right? So when you come into Reach and you create a new listing, you've already gone into your settings before you've even done this and you've created automated task lists. So when you create that new listing, you add an automated task list, it's going to populate your list with the 10 things as subtasks. So it'll be like new listing at this address. And then when you click below, it's going to have the 10 same tasks you do every time when you get a new listing. It's just one thing you don't need to think about, right? And it's shocking how many CRMs out there like don't even have that. And I'm like, that's just like what we try to do is take things off your mind, right? So that you can focus on selling and focus on, showing properties and all the things you need to do. So I think those are some things that really differentiates us. Also, just we're at a much more affordable price, right? Like we are one of the few CRMs that actually charges in Canadian dollars, which is unique. A lot of them out there are US dollars. And we have one competitor who's around the same price as us. Um, we have a deal with Oakland, so Oakland agents pay $25 a month. People who sign up outside of that pay $35. So if there's listeners here that aren't Oakland agents, sorry, but um, it's still way cheaper. Like if you go use Top Producer, even their new simplified version of Top Producer, you're paying 50 USD a month, and it's like, oh, that's a lot of dough for something that I personally don't even think is very good.
This is a very good plug for Oakwin.
Yeah, exactly. Go join Oakland. You get a good deal on Reach.
Hey,
Yeah,
I'm Bel
totally.
Air Realty over here. We're separate brokerages,
But
but I'm so excited.
you can still sign up.
Yeah, I could.
Still $35
But
is
I'm
such a
gonna
great
come
deal.
if I was going to, I'd come to your office.
Aw, thank you. Sorry, we're just gonna don't mind us.
Yeah, we're just good friends.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a lot of agents who are so afraid to pick up the phone.
Mm-hmm.
They're hiding behind a text or an email because they don't want to get the objections and they don't want to face that. So you're really good at making the phone calls 7 days, 14 days, whatever it is, and learning from Jason. That's right. And he recently moved over to another brokerage too, but which I found really interesting strategy for him.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, what's your opening line when you call them and they're a warm B rating lead and you don't want to do a sales pitch, but what is the opening line for
Good
you?
question.
Yeah, that is a good question. I think it really changes for me for every person. And usually it's because I don't know. I don't mind hosting open houses. I'm a personable guy. I I think you genuinely have to show some interest in people, not just like seem like you're trying to sell them a house. So for me, every conversation starts with something more personal, right? It's trying to, whether it could be as simple as, asking how their last week of work was, how this, but just like something that's soft and easy before you go diving into like, hey, so, because I know a lot of people, I've heard people cold call, they like pick up the phone, they're like, hey, this is Cam Walker from Oakland Realty. I met you at this open house, and they're like almost panicky. It feels like they're kind of rushing. I'm just like, I try to treat them as if they're my friend. Um, and how would you want a conversation to go? Hey, how's it going? It's Cam Walker, met you at an open, just wanted to check in, see how things were. Like, how's your house hunt coming along? Like, even if you don't go into that personal standpoint, like finding out, like, maybe you don't know what they do or something, right? It's just like, how do you make it soft? Because people don't like abrasive phone calls. And yet I think the phone's the best tool. Like you said, hiding behind text or email, that's easy. But people get blasted with texts and emails all day. But what they don't do is pick up the phone, right? Like I have a client, one of my best clients, um, and he is a tech guy, big tech guy, and he's like, "You are the only person that calls me." He's like literally look at my phone for the last 3 weeks. There's maybe like 2 calls from his kids, and the rest are from Cam.
Or CRA, or like,
Oh,
a
yeah.
scammer
No, a
trying
scammer.
to get you to send money.
So ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think it definitely gives people the like, whoa, like this guy's actually on the phone with me, like taking the time out of his day. I think that's so much more effective than any email campaign. Because even if you make it look like it's a personal email, it like the signs are like you can tell that it's not, especially when it comes every week or something, right? But a phone call can't be copied. You can't even fake a phone call. You have to be there. You have to be present. You have to be willing to listen, and it goes a long way. Especially speaking from someone who does zero advertising outside of my network, right? So I don't spend any money on social media ads or bus ads or mail outs. I spend money advertising my properties, but I don't do any self promotion. And it's just all from working a network, right? And that's greatly helped by being organized with a CRM.
So I guess some of us that have experienced using multiple CRMs, yeah, one of the hesitations is that we had already said it's clunky, it's difficult to use, maybe not user friendly, and it doesn't encompass all of the things that are going to make our jobs easier. So I'm curious, what different types of workflows, in addition to what you've already mentioned on Reach, can be automated so that we're not spending as much time, right, doing these things. Just have it be easy. Contact your
Totally,
clients.
totally. I think the big thing, which this is a feature we're working on, um, that's going to be huge. But like the little automations are things like you're going to put in an accepted offer on one of your listings. Well, you go in, you're putting in all the information. You want to make sure every step in there is you're not having to duplicate it, right? Um, so when you're entering in a subject removal date, that subject removal date's automatically going to populate your Reach calendar, which is going to populate your iCal, which is going to populate your Google Calendar. Whatever you need it to populate, it will populate. And then when you go in there to remove subjects and you put in the completion and possession dates, same thing. Those automatically go in. You don't have to go in afterwards and be like, okay, I've got the accepted offer. Now I need to go in my calendar and add those dates. Like that goes in your process. Now that property is going to sit there and move into a separate folder, the transactions folder, where you can like actually see and wait until it's actually a completed deal. So you always have an idea of like what's pending, like what do I need to work on? And then once it's completed, like that's a manual process. You click complete, it goes away. You don't have to think about it. But then I was like, okay, well, the other thing a lot of CRMs don't do is they don't track your commissions. I'm like, well, that's super annoying. They might show you like um, some will do like you can put in your dollar amount and it will show you like where you're at. But I'm like, let's like do some cool goal tracking. So like you can set a goal and reach at the beginning of the year. And then we actually have like charts that will map out. So it's like has a line graph and it's like if you stay above this line, you're going to hit your goal. And then it will individually plot every transaction you do as you go. So you can actually see where it is. You can switch it to a month map so you can see which months were your like biggest months. But the bonus for me is I can actually see when I'm going to get paid, even just on the transaction grid sheet. I'm like, okay, I'm going to make, $13,000 on this day. Previously, I have to like go through my emails from conveyance, like EFT things, and be like, oh, where's that? When am I getting paid for this? Or like, did I get paid for that? Whereas with this, it keeps everything in line. You can see where you're at. You can see your year over year stats, which I think is really fun. But again, that all happens from the moment you start an accepted offer, all that stuff populates in. And like if you're working on a team, I have Dinah on my team and I'll add in her commission amounts. Well, her reach account gets populated with that too. And she has her own goals and that all goes there and is separated. The other like thing that for reach, and this isn't so much an automation thing, but with most CRMs, the team, we never thought we'd be a team solution. Our plan was to always be like the individual agent. We quickly realized teams need a better solution. So we spent the better part of like 8 months building out a really, really good team system. So there's a lot of sharing permissions. So you could bring on a buyer's agent and literally share 2 buyers with them. And that's it. That's like your accounts are connected, but all they can see is 2 buyers. So then you're not having to like show them your entire contact list or all your transactions or maybe all your listings. Like maybe that's not relative to them at all. Or you can choose to share everything and your team can see all that. You can even just give people read access or update access. Like we've made it very granular so you can do those kind of things. So not really on the automation side, but it definitely helps teams in a situation where it's like, well, how do I make this work as a team? Like this doesn't really, no functionality there for me.
Those are great features.
Yeah, you actually just gave me an idea because I have a whole bunch of URLs and I want to make them live and sell the leads. But this would be a great way for me to track with that whoever I sent the lead to, for them to put input like where they're at what stage with that lead they're at, and then the conversion, and then track when I'll get paid from that lead. So this is great. We got to talk. It's been a year, more than a year than that we had a Zoom call about, and I think it was in beta mode at that time. So
Yeah, we didn't even have our team stuff like dialed in now, but like honestly, it's thanks to people like Jessica Chen. Her team switched over to Reach a while ago, and they've given us like tons of feedback and really good feedback that we've been able to implement a lot of it. And they've used a bunch of bigger CRM names out there, and they've literally said to us like, where were you this whole time, right? So it's awesome getting that kind of feedback, but it's really cool because without teams like that joining us and trusting that, you're definitely at the beginning, you feel like, oh, I'm taking a bit of a gamble, right? But it's they joined a few months ago, and it's been awesome just like learning from what they need, because you deal with those like top producing teams and you're like, oh, whoa, we need to switch this, we need to switch this, we need to make this more reliable. And just even little things like load times are so important, right? Because otherwise people get frustrated with your product. So
agents supporting agents, which is great. And this is a question that I actually asked you on our Zoom call. Is you're an agent and you have access to all the data, and we're uploading the personal information from all these clients. So and of course I trust you, but there's other agents that don't know you. So how do you ensure that you're not stealing that information?
for sure. Yeah, we get asked that question every once in a while. I actually don't have access to the information. So that's the easy answer. Mike, the developer, does all of that, and everything is encrypted and locked up in Google Firebase. I literally looked at him working on Firebase and I'm like, I actually can't tell. I can see that that's that person's team and everything else looks like gobbledygook. I'm like, I don't know what that is. I've had a few agents who work in the same market as me who are like, hey, I want to use your software, but you're in the same industry and I trust you, but I also just want to be very sure. And we've just signed, NDAs with them that, nothing's going to happen. When people are outside of the North Shore, really, no one's ever really requested anything like that. I think they're just like, well, it is what it is. But yeah, no, it's a good question. And all the stuff, like people ask about storage, like where do you store it? Like what happens to my data? Like everything's just stored in Google Firebase. So we don't use our own servers. We don't want to be responsible for maintaining servers. Some people are like, well, it could be more cost effective. I'm like, I don't really care. I just want to make sure it's backed up like 4 times. And that's what something like Google Firebase or Amazon Web Services will do. So we go that route just to make sure that everything is safe and protected, because people spend a lot of time building up their CRMs And we want to make sure that that data isn't just going to disappear one day.
I'll be honest too. And I've probably tried like 4 or 5 different CRMs, from Top Producer to Brivity. What was the one that we used in the other states? Totally forgot. Anyways, we now eliminated all of it and we're just using Mailchimp.
Mm-hmm.
Boomtown. I'm sure you've heard it. I think they're from
Boomtown's
Illinois.
huge. Yeah, Boomtown ROI. Yeah, they're big.
But it was like so complicated.
And some of those systems, like there's no doubt, Boomtown is a big software, and teams that use them and use them effectively, it can be a really good software. But you have to commit like a copious amount of time to building out how you're going to function in that platform to make it worthwhile. And the thing is, a lot of agents don't have that kind of time on their hands, and they think they might, and then they don't. So it's really those like upper echelon teams that have like 3 admin staff that sit there and learn the software, get it dialed in, and then they go and they can start seeing some success from it. But it's a lot harder to see that success because most people just get overwhelmed before they start. They do their free trials and that's it. Whereas like we don't even offer a free trial, and that's very intentional. We're like, hey, we are happy to hop on a Zoom call with you. We'll go on a Zoom call with you for an hour on the first time we meet you. We'll run you through the software. We'll see if you're comfortable. Then we'll help you. Like if you're not comfortable doing your uploading of your CSV file or getting contacts in, we'll come back on with you. We'll do it again. And yeah, we just want people to like get in and dive in. It's like the free trials, no one ends up using them. They like come in, they sit there, they think they're going to do it, they procrastinate, trial expires, they never use it. We're like, hey, we know you're going to be happy using the software. You just have to give us time and we'll make sure you're good with it. Because every CRM, even ours, which is simple, it can still be overwhelming, right? So our way to overcome that is like, hey, we'll sit there and hold your hand for the first little bit. We just know we're not going to have to hold your hand very long because it is simple.
Mm-hmm. So simple. Yeah. And $35 a month, $35 a month, what's the commitment? Is it 1 year?
Nope, it's monthly. So you can say, no, thanks, I'm not interested, and move on. If you do go, yeah. So if you do go yearly, then it goes to 30 a month. But then you're locked in for a year. So yeah, most people just do the monthly. It's easy that way. And like some people are like, well, what if I like want to use it, but I just like I start it and then I get overwhelmed and I just like need to take a little break, but I don't want my data to disappear because I'll probably come back. We maintain all that data. So if you do leave and come back, your stuff will still be there. If it's 2 years down the road, maybe it won't be. But if you leave for a few months because things get overwhelmed or whatever, we'll help people out. And that's like our whole thing is we want to make sure agents have success. So like I just had an agent email me a couple of days ago. They're like, hey, like I'm not really using it. I think I want to cancel my account. I'm like, hey, well, how about this? I'm going to give you 2 months for free. I know you've been paying for the last few months, but you haven't been using it. So I understand that sucks. So I'll give you 2 months for free. But to do that, you have to do a Zoom call with me for an hour. And I will show you how to get set up and get dialed in because I don't want them to leave because I think it's going to benefit their business. So we try to be really like reasonable. We're not a huge company. We can do things like that just make people. And I think once you do that, then they're locked in, right? They're like, oh, this is great. And because customer service is like the number one thing. So someone's always going to answer a question. And that's the kind of stuff we're willing to do to make sure people find success in it. Because it's easy to register people. Everyone it sounds great. Simple CRM, it's more affordable. But if they don't use it, you're going to lose them as a user. So it's like, what can we do to make sure that people are happy? Because we haven't spent any money going out advertising the business. It's just like we want to make cheerleaders. So if we can get one team to speak highly of us and tell 3 other teams, then it's awesome. Like that's what we'd rather do. So to do that, you just have to offer incredible service, which is hopefully what we're doing.
What are some hard numbers or percentages or dollar amounts that you've seen someone prior to joining Reach and then now after? Have they given you any feedback on how much their volume has grown or their gross revenue? And maybe even yourself, like you using the system yourself, have you had any hard stats come in from the agents?
We haven't done any of that yet. We probably will. We do know like we've heard from some pretty significant agents, especially on the North Shore. One guy came to Brandon, my partner, and was like, "Hey, I just want to let you know, like, ever since I got organized with Reach, like, my business has been exploding. Obviously, there's a few factors there. Like, we've had good markets, all sorts of stuff. But he said, he's like, hey, he's like, don't downplay what you guys have created, because if I wasn't organized, I wouldn't have been able to kept up, and I would have lost some of those leads, and I wouldn't have had been tracking things, or I would have forgotten to print brochures, or I would have forgotten to order a signpost. Like, he's like, all those little things add up and made my business like way more successful this past year than I could have. So it's like obviously very encouraging to hear. So don't have like hard numbers. And I've been very intentional about, there's a few companies that they're like, you join our system and you'll see a 35% increase in your business. I've never wanted to advertise that way, which is probably why I haven't like pursued to see like what people's year over year growth is. But my mentality has always been, hey, if you take the time to work with a CRM, you're just going to get more organized. Once you're more organized, you're going to do better business. Once you're doing better business, you're going to do more business, because that's just the natural flow of business, right? You offer a good service, that means you get referrals, and referrals lead more business. And if you can manage those referrals well, then that all starts from one place. Like, I've had a couple new agents say to me, oh, well, I don't think I really want to spend, $35 a month on a software. Like, I don't have a lot of clients. I'm like, well, it's better to get started now when you can get organized easily versus down the road, a decade later for someone like me, where it's like, I have to go through and like really work through all my people to get them set up, right? Like, we're doing that right now with a very prominent West Van realtor, and it's like a nightmare. There's a lot of stuff and a lot of unorganized stuff. And we do offer we don't do any upselling on any of our product, but for agents who want to import a ton of data, like historical data. So like, we just did one guy in Coquitlam. He's like a top 10 agent out there. And he wanted to bring stuff over from Top Producer, but like dating back to '07. And we charged a $500 fee, and we helped with that full custom import. So we brought in his listings, we brought in his historical listings, we brought in everything. Because you in your clients, like on your contacts, you can see all the past transactions you've done with your people, which is great, but that's only for Reach users who have been using Reach. So he's like, I want it to look like I've been using Reach for the last decade, So we do offer that.
Cam, would the Reach CRM be useful to other professionals in the industry, like a mortgage broker or possibly an insurance broker?
So we've talked about, like, eventually, once we get our real estate business to a certain standpoint, like, we've built this really good framework to build off of. So like, the reason our website is reachforagents.com is eventually, hopefully, that will be Reach for brokers, and it will be Reach for this and Reach for that. We want to make sure that we don't create a generalist CRM. We want it to be industry specific. So if we're going to go do that, we're probably going to partner with a mortgage broker or partner with an insurance broker. So we're already doing that on the pre-sale side of real estate. So I'm actually working on a couple projects on the west side right now that a developer of mine has built, and we're testing out Reach as, instead of using something like Spark, how can we give the small developer an affordable option? Because you go to a company like that and it's really expensive, but they're only selling 12 townhouses. They don't need, this crazy system. They need something a little more simplified. So we're going through that right now and figuring, like, what do we need to change in the CRM? So we'd love to see that for, insurance brokers or anything. Insurance might be difficult because they're kind of archaic and operate out of big, robust insurance softwares. But there's definitely mortgage brokers and, repeat residential business, like plumbers, contractors. Like, there's softwares out there, but how can we tap into that as well?
Yeah, if you want some feedback for the pre-sale, I have that conversation all the time with my developers who don't want to invest in Lasso or Spark. Some of them have, defaulted to HubSpot, but it's not really real estate specific. So I would love to give you some feedback, because I do work with boutique developers who don't want to have that large initial investment, and their projects are far and few between. So yeah, that would be great if you can produce something like that for?
100%. And that's what we're working. The guy who we've partnered with on this sales side, he used to use Lasso. And my partner, Dinah, who works with me, she was with Polygon for a long time. So she's used a lot of these big softwares. And she's like, this is just so unnecessary for that big thing. So again, for a small developer doing that, to pay $35 a month to have a database moving forwards is a very small cost. And that's something they can stomach. But and then, when they get to a project on the go, they just add a few salespeople while they're doing it, and then they can shut those accounts down when the projects aren't happening. So we provide a lot of flexibility with that. It's just now we need to kind of morph it to match it well, right?
Sounds really exciting. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What do we have to look forward to in the next generation of Reach?
We have a really, really exciting thing. Yeah, this is like the most exciting part for us. We have this feature that it's still a ways away, partly because we need to get some real estate board permissions and approvals, which is a nightmare. But one thing no CRM has is this like customer portal thing. So it's actually like a client facing side of a CRM. So I want the ability to have all my client communication in one place. I want my clients to be able to search for properties in one place. I want my clients to be able to make notes, send comments in one place. I want my listings to be all in one spot so that so essentially we're going to try and create our own touch base as well through this. So, let's say you put your listing on MLS, instead of clicking the touch base button, there's going to be, for now until we get approval, there'll be a link in the realtor remarks. You click that link, that's how you book a showing. But in the spirit of automation, when that showing request comes in, it will come to my Reach system as a notification. I'll approve it. Once it's approved, it goes to the seller for their approval. Once they approve it, that agent gets notified the showing's been booked and you're off to the races. So it's just this process of like, I don't even have to pick up the phone to call my client to see. Now, obviously, the odd time you might have to. But then the idea is when you go to do those showings, I've had so many times where I have to call a client after a showing because they want feedback. Well, that what should be a 2-minute phone call ends up being a 15-minute phone call. And it's like, well, I got to move on to the next thing, right? But if I can just leave the appointment, go on my phone, click on that showing, type in the seller feedback, send, they get notified in their system and they get an email that says, Cam's just giving you feedback for the 3 o'clock showing, went really well, blah, blah, blah. Now you look like a freaking superstar. They have feedback like 10 minutes after you've left the place and they can respond through there. So it keeps all your communication in one spot and it will operate kind of like a text message thread. And then same thing for buyers. Like the whole idea is, you create a tour. Like I don't want to print off a bunch of papers and brochures and all this stuff. Like everyone has an iPhone or an Android or something. So if you can create these tours through this customer portal, well, then they can just go on tour with you. You've created the tour online. You've set it up. They now log in their customer portal. They can see the tour that they're on. They can click it. The 5 properties you're going to show them are already attached to it with the floor plans and the titles and everything they need is already there, the MLS sheet, all on their phone. And then when they're done each showing, they can make comments about it. They can go home at 10 o'clock at night. And instead of having to call you to chat it over, they can just write their comments into the section. It will come to you as a message. You can see what they're thinking. They can say, hey, we want to, prep an offer. And then it will do all the standard stuff. So all your document storage for each client will be in their client portal. So instead of hey Cam, can you get me a copy of my purchase agreement? I need to send it to this person. It's like, it's already in the portal. Just download it, right? Hey Cam, who do you recommend for moving? No, there's already a referral section in the portal that I pre-populated with everyone who I recommend. It's already there. And how many times I get asked by clients, which is kind of weird, but what's my possession date again? And it's like, no, big markers right on the screen. And it's like, this is your completion date. This is your possession date. That will show up on the top of the customer portal as soon as they log in once they have an accepted offer. So this is, it's a huge undertaking. The ultimate goal is that this will be a Reach system that is included with Reach. So every Reach user will get this. we're also looking at packaging it up and creating like a third-party version that could actually be integrated with people who are operating on other CRMs who are having a hard time switching because they're so entrenched in it, even though they might not love it. But we just think this is going to be such a game changer for agents that they'll want it. Again, it will be a better system if you're using Reach because it's going to integrate a lot nicer. But that's kind of the next big push for us. So it's a lot. There's a lot of design going on right now, a lot of mapping of flows and kind of going over like how this will all function, especially when you want to start doing things like what Touchbase does. But Touchbase said they don't want to partner with us, so.
Oh, that's okay. You can do your
That's
own.
okay. You can do your own. And it'll be better than Touchbase. Cam, it's very obvious you're an entrepreneur. You can tolerate a high risk in this business, but none of your businesses were in the tech industry. So you've probably have learned a lot by being in this realm now. And so I'm imagining the conversations between you and the software developer is like a Steve Jobs type of conversation, which where you're like, you want to do this, you want to do that, you want to do this. And then the software developer's like, whoa, hold up. Like this is going to take years of planning. So does it sound like that?
Definitely. There's moments of that where he has to like bring me back down of like, hey, okay. And over the years I've learned how to temper myself, like, okay, that's probably not as easy as it sounds. How many times I'm like, hey Mike, let's just do this. He's like, that's not like a quick change. Like that takes tons of effort and time. But he's also learned to like push his boundaries and see like where we can make things go. And as we've grown and got more users, he's been more excited about what we can do and how we can do it and how we can stretch it and how we can differentiate ourselves, right, from other CRMs. So, but yeah, it definitely, I get a little bit intense sometimes and he's like, whoa, okay, like I'm one guy, I can't do like a billion things. And it is a steep learning curve going into tech. And without having good mentors, it would be much harder. Like my close friend, client, and he's a big tech founder of a huge company. I'm always calling him, being like, hey, what do I do here? Like, can you review this for me? Or what are your thoughts on this? And thank the Lord, he's willing to take the time. Like he runs a massive company. I don't know how he does it, but it's super helpful because without that, I think I would be pooched.
How does one get started if they want to sign up? We have a lot of realtors listening. So where do they go?
If you go to reachforagents.com, you can hit register. It will take you through the whole process. Again, there's the $35 or $30 a month if you pay for the year. If you are an agent through either Oakwin or Stillhaven, talk to your brokerage. They'll have specific links that you can follow. They have, brokerage deals. They were early adopters and have, really helped us out in the early stages. So there's a special deal for them. So you got to follow the link. I think if you're an Oakwin agent, it's in the O Weekly. So you can register through there. And you actually don't even have to put in a card because Oakwin will bill you directly on your monthly statement, which is kind of nice. But yeah, agents outside of Oakwin, you'll have to do it through us way.
Old-fashioned way.
You're going to need to create a new link for my brokerage, my Northwest brokerage, because we're kind of a little bit separate. So we're going to start off or finish off with our 5 rapid fire questions. And I know we've peppered you with so many questions, but these are fun questions. So just to lighten things up, what do you love most about the North Shore?
Oh, so much. Well, for me, it's again, I'm probably a bit biased. I've lived here my whole life, but I love the fact that I could go snowboarding, biking, swimming, and golfing in the same day, hypothetically, right? Like there's still snow in the mountains. I can still go biking. It's just like, it's the ultimate outdoor paradise. So to me, that's the dream.
That's my answer too.
Plug for North Shore, yeah. 3 words that best describe you.
Oh gosh. Probably a little stubborn.
So funny.
We're laughing because somebody else had said that earlier. Yeah.
About me?
No, about themselves.
generally pretty happy guy. I think happy is a good way to put it. And I don't know, adventurous. I like constantly doing stuff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What's the biggest lesson you've learned working in this business?
The people suck. No.
Oh.
That people's like,
Well, it's like working with people is tiring. This industry has taught me a lot about how to work with people and how, I think a lot of people think agents' jobs are easy. They see big paydays at the end, they do all that. But if you're in that kind of top tier of agents, like it's not an easy job. There's a lot going on. And I think it's just taught me a lot of how to deal with people's emotions and deal with all that kind of like human baggage that comes along with stuff like this, big decisions, right?
yeah. And Cam, we often talk about putting boundaries around working with people that you don't want to work with and letting them go.
Or firing them. Yeah, altogether.
Firing them, yeah.
What fact about you might surprise another realtor that has just met you?
Another realtor that's just met me. Oh, geez. I don't know. Maybe the fact that, probably the fact that the next time they see me, I'll still be wearing a t-shirt and jeans. Everyone's always like, wait, how do you get away like never dressing up? I'm like, I just don't dress up anymore. Like I wear, you know, Nikes or some sort of Kizik shoe with jeans and a black or white t-shirt. And that's just what it is. And they're like, I don't understand. Like, don't your clients care about that? I'm like, no, your clients care about that you do a good job for them, right? Now, there's the odd client I might put on, like I have some really good older clients that kind of expect to see you a certain way. I'll do what I have to do. But most people are like, what the heck? I thought like you were just on like a day off when I saw you last time. But no, always casual.
If you're not a real estate agent, what career or profession would you be in?
Probably just creating as many businesses as possible. Back in the day, I used to think I'd want to be in the Coast Guard because I love being on the water. So that would have been like, pre realizing I had some sort of passion for business. Um, I would have wanted to do something like that. But yeah, otherwise it'd just be creating as many businesses as possible that can cash flow.
Awesome.
Well, this wraps up our session. You guys can follow Cam Walker at camwalker.ca or reachforagent.com if you want to sign up for his CRM. This has been a very informative session. I'm going to book a Zoom call with you because I think there's some opportunities that I need to adopt your CRM into my business. So thank you, Cam.
Thanks
Cam.
for having me on. And hope you guys have a good rest of the week.